The fence post snapped under Owen Hayes' hands like dried wheat. He tossed it aside and wiped sweat from his forehead, squinting at the orange sun beating down on Taros 9. 3 years on this world, and he still forgot how strong the gravity made everything feel. Back on Earth, that post would have held for another decade. Here, the wind and the weight broke things faster. Owen grabbed a fresh post from his transport sled and drove it into the red soil. The ground resisted, then swallowed the metal pole with a grinding sound. He welded the connecting wire and moved to the next broken section. His homestead spread across 50 acres of rocky plains, bordered by dense forest to the north and jagged mountains to the west. Good land, people said. Safe land, they promised when he bought it. They lied about the safe part. Something moved in the tree line. Owen's hand stopped halfway to his tool belt. He did not reach for the rifle leaning against the sled. Instead, he straightened slowly and looked directly at the shadow between the trees. The Shalvek stepped into the light. Owen had seen pictures in the colonial safety briefings. The images did not capture the real size. This creature stood as tall as his transport sled at the shoulder, its 6 legs spread wide for balance. Armored plates covered its body in overlapping segments, each one the color of storm clouds. 4 yellow eyes watched him from a broad skull, and when it breathed, he could see rows of teeth designed for tearing meat. Most people would have run. Some would have grabbed the rifle. Owen did neither. He had spent 20 years working with lions, elephants, and rhinos on Earth's African reserves. He knew what panic looked like to a predator. He knew what prey looked like. He refused to look like prey. The Shalvek tilted its head, studying him. Owen studied it back. The creature's left shoulder showed a deep gash, still bleeding. The wound ran from its neck ridge down to its front leg joint. Fresh, maybe a day old. Something had fought this animal and hurt it badly. That looks painful, Owen said quietly. His voice carried across the open ground between them. The Shalvek's ears flicked forward, listening. You should clean it before infection sets in. The creature took 1 step closer. Then another. Owen's heart hammered against his ribs, but he kept his breathing steady. He had learned long ago that animals could smell fear. They could sense the chemical change in a human's sweat when terror took over. The Shalvek stopped 20 feet away. It lowered its head and made a sound, a deep rumble that Owen felt in his chest. Not aggressive. Questioning, maybe. Or warning. I'm not going to hurt you, Owen said. He moved his hand slowly, visibly, and picked up a canteen from the sled. He poured water into a metal bowl and set it on the ground. Then he backed away 5 steps. The Shalvek watched every movement. When Owen stopped moving, it approached the bowl. It sniffed the water, then lapped at it with a gray tongue. The creature drank the entire bowl, its eyes never leaving Owen's face. Owen crouched down slowly and opened his medical kit. He pulled out antibacterial spray, bandaging, and a sealed pack of synthesized protein bars. He set them on the ground near the empty bowl. For the wound, he said, pointing at the supplies, then at the Shalvek's injury. And for energy. You've lost blood. The Shalvek's ears swiveled, tracking sounds Owen could not hear. Then the creature backed away, leaving the medical supplies untouched. It melted into the forest as silently as it had appeared. Owen let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. His hand shook as he packed up his tools. The rifle felt heavy when he picked it up. He had not fired it once in 3 years. He hoped he would never need to. The transport sled hummed as he drove back to his house, a simple prefab structure with solar panels and a water recycler. His neighbor Beth was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed and her face tight with worry. I saw it on my perimeter sensors, she said without greeting. A Shalvek, Owen, right on your property line. I know. Did you shoot it? No. Beth stared at him like he had grown a second head. Are you insane? Those things have killed 3 colonists this year. 3, Owen. They're not pets. They're not friends. They're killers. Owen climbed out of the sled and walked past her into the house. Beth followed, still talking. The Colonial Board has a standing order. Any Shalvek within 500 meters of a homestead gets put down immediately. You had a clear shot and you didn't take it. It was injured, Owen said. He pulled 2 glasses from the cupboard and filled them with filtered water. He handed one to Beth. Something else hurt it. It came here for water, not violence. How do you know that? Because I'm still alive. Beth drank her water and shook her head. You're going to get yourself killed with that attitude. This isn't Earth. These aren't elephants or lions. Shalveks are smarter and meaner than anything you dealt with back home. Maybe, Owen said. He looked out the window toward the tree line. Or maybe they're just misunderstood. Beth left after dark, still muttering about death wishes and crazy conservationists. Owen locked his doors and checked his perimeter alarms. Everything showed green, safe, secure. He did not feel safe. He felt watched. When dawn came and Owen stepped outside, he found the medical supplies gone. The bowl was clean, licked, spotless. And in the dust near his porch he saw tracks. 6-legged tracks, each print the size of his head. The Shalvek had come back in the night. It had taken what he offered. And it had left something in return. A dead Grendel lay near his fence line, its neck broken cleanly. The smaller predator would have attacked his livestock within days. Now it never would. Owen looked at the gift, then at the forest. "You're welcome," he said to the trees. 3 weeks changed everything between Owen and the creature from the forest. The Shalvek returned on the 4th night after their first meeting. Owen found tracks around his homestead and another dead Grendel near the livestock pens. The pattern continued. Every few nights the creature appeared. Owen never saw it approach, but he always knew when it had visited. He left supplies at the tree line each evening. Medical gel, protein supplements, clean water. By morning, everything would be gone. The Shalvek's wound healed slowly, visible when Owen caught glimpses of the creature watching from the shadows. The angry red gash faded to pink, then to a silvery scar across the dark armor plating. Owen stopped carrying his rifle during fence repairs. The weapon felt wrong now, insulting to whatever understanding existed between him and his visitor. Beth called him foolish. Other colonists called him worse. The Colonial Board sent 2 safety inspectors who lectured Owen about proper threat protocols and the dangers of habituating predators. Owen listened politely and ignored every word. On the 21st day, everything changed. Owen was clearing brush from his northern property line when he heard the sound. Not the deep rumble of his Shalvek, but higher pitched. Excited. Hungry. A pack of Grendels burst from the underbrush. 7 of them, each one the size of a large dog but built like nightmares. Black scales, too many teeth and eyes that reflected red in the afternoon light. They spread out immediately, surrounding Owen with the practiced efficiency of pack hunters who knew their business. Owen's rifle was back at the house. His blade was on his belt, useless against 7 predators. He backed against a thick tree trunk and pulled the knife anyway. If he was going to die on this world, he would not die running. The lead Grendel lunged. The Shalvek hit it in midair. Owen had never seen the creature move at full speed. It was like watching a landslide with teeth. The Shalvek crashed into the Grendel pack with such force that 2 of them tumbled across the ground. Its jaws closed around the lead Grendel's spine and broke it with one snap. The remaining Grendels scattered, but not fast enough. The Shalvek took down another, then a third. The survivors fled into the forest, yelping in fear. The Shalvek chased them to the tree line and stopped, breathing hard. Blood dripped from its mouth, but none of it was its own. Owen slid down the tree trunk, his legs suddenly weak. The Shalvek turned and walked toward him. It moved slowly now, carefully. It stopped 5 feet away and sat back on its haunches like a cat, waiting. "You saved my life," Owen said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears, shaky and thin. "Why?" The Shalvek made that rumbling sound again. It laid down completely, lowering its massive head to the ground. Owen recognized the posture from his years with lions. Submission, trust, an invitation. Owen crawled forward on his hands and knees. The Shalvek did not move. He reached out slowly and touched the armored head. The plates felt warm under his palm, smooth like river stones. The creature's eyes closed halfway, accepting his touch. They stayed like that until the sun began to set. When Owen finally stood to go home, the Shalvek stood with him. It followed him back to the homestead, keeping pace a few feet behind. At the porch steps, Owen turned. "You can stay if you want," he said. "There's room." The Shalvek settled onto the ground near his workshop, watching the tree line, guarding. Owen went inside and found his hands still shaking. He made dinner and ate without tasting it. When he looked out the window, the Shalvek was still there, still watching, still protecting. Beth arrived the next morning and stopped her vehicle halfway up the drive. The Shalvek raised its head but did not move from its spot. Beth stayed in her vehicle for 5 full minutes before Owen walked out to meet her. "Is that thing living here now?" she asked through the open window. "Seems like it." "Owen, this is beyond crazy. This is suicidal. She saved my life yesterday. A Grendel pack attacked me during brush clearing. She killed 3 of them." Beth's face went pale. "She? I think so. The body structure matches the female profile from the xenobiology reports. You're studying it now?" "Trying to understand," Owen corrected. "There's a difference." Beth climbed out of her vehicle slowly. The Shalvek watched her, but remained calm. "What are you calling her?" Owen had thought about that question all night. Names felt too human, too possessive, but he needed something to call the creature in his mind. "Gray," he said finally, "because of the silver markings on her hide." "Gray," Beth repeated. She took a careful step toward the Shalvek. Gray's ears swiveled to track the movement, but she did not rise. "Can I?" "Move slowly. No sudden gestures. And if she stands up, back away immediately." Beth approached like she was walking on glass. When she got within 10 feet, Gray made a soft, chuffing sound. Not threatening. More like acknowledgement. Beth stopped there, not pushing further. "This shouldn't be possible," Beth said quietly. "Everything we know about Shalvek says they're solitary, territorial, and aggressive toward anything that isn't prey or a mate." "Maybe we don't know as much as we think," Owen said. Over the next week, Gray's presence became normal. She hunted at night and slept during the day near Owen's workshop. She allowed Owen to check her old wound and apply healing gel to the scar tissue. She brought kills and left them at the property line, gifts that Owen took and processed into meat for his freezer. Other colonists heard about the situation. Some came to see the impossible sight of a human living peacefully with a Shalvek. Others complained to the colonial board, demanding action against the dangerous animal. Owen ignored all of it. He had found something rare on this harsh world. Something that transcended species and language and fear. He had found trust, and he would protect it with everything he had. Gray disappeared on a cold morning 2 months after she had become part of Owen's life. Owen woke to find her usual sleeping spot empty. No tracks led away from the homestead. No signs of struggle or blood. She had simply vanished in the night like smoke and wind. The first day without her felt wrong. Owen completed his work with half his attention always on the tree line, waiting for her familiar shape to emerge. Nothing came. The second day brought worry. The third day brought something close to grief. Beth found him on the 4th day, sitting on his porch and staring at nothing. "She'll come back," Beth said, sitting down beside him. "Maybe she found a mate. Maybe it's migration season. We don't know enough about their patterns." "She would have told me somehow," Owen said. "She always communicated when she was leaving to hunt. This feels different." "You can't know what she's thinking, Owen. She's not human." Owen knew that. He also knew Gray better than anyone else on this planet. Something was wrong. On the 5th day, Gray returned. Owen was hauling water to his garden when he heard the rumble. He spun around and there she was, standing at the edge of his property. She looked thinner, exhausted. Her armor plates seemed dull in the morning light. "Gray," Owen breathed. He dropped the water container and walked toward her. She met him halfway and pressed her massive head against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her skull, feeling the warmth of her breath. Then she pulled back and looked at him. Really looked at him, with an intensity he had never seen before. She turned and walked toward the forest, then stopped and looked back. An invitation. Owen grabbed his medical bag and followed. Gray led him into the mountains for 3 hours. The path climbed through dense forest, over rocky slopes, and finally into a canyon Owen had never explored. The canyon walls rose high on both sides, creating shadows even at midday. At the far end stood a cave entrance large enough to drive a transport through. Gray stopped at the entrance and rumbled softly. Then she walked inside. Owen followed with his hand light on, though the cave had natural illumination from cracks in the ceiling. The main chamber stretched back 50 meters and rose to cathedral height, and in the center, on a bed of dried grasses and leaves, lay Gray. She was preparing a nest. Owen understood immediately. His breath caught in his throat as he watched her circle the nest, arranging materials with careful precision. She was pregnant. That was why she had disappeared. That was why she looked exhausted. "Oh, Gray," he whispered. She came to him and lowered her head. Owen placed his hands on her armor and felt for the subtle changes he should have noticed before. The slight swell of her lower abdomen, hidden by the natural bulk of her body, the way she moved more carefully, protecting her center mass. "How long?" he asked, though she could not answer. He pulled out his portable scanner and ran it over her body. The device was meant for livestock, but it adapted to Gray's biology. The readings showed 4 distinct heartbeats besides Gray's own. 4 cubs. Owen sat down hard on the cave floor. Gray settled beside him, her bulk pressing against his side. He leaned into her warmth and tried to process what this meant. Shelvex were endangered. The colonial expansion had destroyed much of their habitat. Only a few hundred remained in the wild. Every birth mattered. Every cub meant hope for the species, and Gray had chosen to show him this. To trust him with the most vulnerable moment of her life. "I'll help you," Owen promised. "Whatever you need." Over the next 2 weeks, Owen split his time between his homestead and Gray's cave. He brought supplies, checked her health, and made sure she had enough food. Gray hunted less frequently now, conserving her energy. Owen supplemented her diet with protein-rich feeds and vitamins. Beth helped, though she made him promise not to tell anyone else about the pregnancy. The fewer people who knew, the safer Gray would be. On the 15th day, Owen arrived at the cave to find Gray agitated. She paced the chamber, rumbling constantly. Her breathing came in short bursts. Owen checked her vitals and his stomach dropped. The cubs were in distress. One of them showed an irregular heartbeat. Another was positioned wrong for birth. Gray was going into labor early, and without intervention she might lose them all. "I need to call for help," Owen said, reaching for his communicator. Gray's head whipped around. She growled. A real warning sound that Owen had never heard directed at him. She stepped between him and the cave entrance. "Gray, I can't do this alone. I'm not a veterinarian. I don't know enough about your biology." Gray growled again and laid down in her nest. She looked at Owen with those 4 yellow eyes and made the softest sound he had ever heard from her. A plea, a command, a declaration of trust that went beyond any rational thought. She wanted no one else here. Only him. Owen put away the communicator. He pulled out every medical tool he had and arranged them beside the nest. He had delivered calves and foals on Earth. He had assisted with difficult births for lions and elephants. But this was different. "This was Gray, all right," he said quietly. "We'll do this together. Just you and me." Gray rumbled her agreement. The labor began as the sun set outside. Owen stayed by her side, monitoring her vitals and preparing for the moment when he would need to help bring new life into the world. He did not know if he was qualified for this. He did not know if he would make the right choices. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not let Gray down. Not now. Not ever. The cave filled with Gray's labored breathing as night fell across. Taros 9. Owen checked his supplies one more time and settled in beside the massive creature, who had chosen to trust him with everything. "Whenever you're ready," he said. "I'm here." The first cub arrived just after midnight. Owen had seen births before, but nothing prepared him for the raw intensity of watching Gray labor. She made sounds that echoed through the cave like thunder. Her claws scraped gouges in the stone floor, but she never once snapped at Owen, even when the pain made her whole body shake. The cub slid into the world in a rush of fluid and membrane. Gray immediately turned to clean it, her rough tongue stripping away the birth sac. The tiny creature mewled, a sound so small and helpless that Owen's heart squeezed. 1 down, 3 to go. The second cub came an hour later with less difficulty. Gray cleaned this one too, nudging both cubs toward her belly. They crawled on unsteady legs, already seeking warmth and food. Then the complications began. Gray's contractions grew erratic. Owen checked his scanner and saw what he had feared. The third cub was positioned wrong, pressing against Gray's spine instead of moving down the birth canal. If it stayed that way, it would block the fourth cub and potentially kill Gray. "I need to help," Owen said, showing Gray his hands. "I need to reach inside and turn the cub. It's going to hurt." Gray's eyes locked on his. She rumbled once, then laid her head down flat and went very still. Permission. Trust. Owen sterilized his hands and arms with antibacterial gel. His hands shook as he reached inside Gray's body, feeling for the cub. The heat and pressure were intense. His fingers found the small form and carefully, slowly, he began to rotate it. Gray made a sound like breaking stone. Her whole body tensed, but she did not move. She did not pull away. Almost there, Owen whispered. Almost, the cub turned. Owen felt it slide into the correct position and withdrew his hands quickly. Within minutes, Gray's contractions resumed their proper rhythm. The third cub emerged, smaller than the others but moving. Gray cleaned it immediately, 3 down, 1 to go. The fourth cub arrived at dawn. Owen saw the problem immediately. It was not breathing. The birth sac covered its face too thickly and its small chest did not move. Gray nudged the cub frantically, trying to stimulate breath. Nothing happened. She looked at Owen with something close to panic in her eyes. Owen grabbed the cub, his hands barely able to hold the slippery form. He cleared the membrane from its mouth and nose, then listened for a heartbeat. Faint. Too faint. He had done this before with calves, with foals, with lion cubs in his conservation work. The principle should be the same. Owen placed the cub on its side and pressed on its tiny rib cage in quick rhythmic pulses. 30 compressions. He tilted the cub's head back and breathed gently into its nose and mouth. The lungs were so small, too much air would rupture them. Too little would not help. Gray watched, making distressed sounds. Owen counted. 30 more compressions. Another breath. He felt for the heartbeat and found it slightly stronger. Come on, he whispered. Come on, little one, breathe. 30 compressions. 1 breath. Check the heartbeat. 30 compressions. 1 breath. Check the heartbeat. The cub coughed. Owen nearly dropped it in relief. The small creature gasped, then let out a weak mewl. Its chest began to rise and fall on its own. Shallow at first, then stronger. Owen placed the cub in front of Gray's face. She immediately began cleaning it with desperate thoroughness, as if she could lick life back into its body through sheer will. The cub responded, squirming and crying. Owen sat back against the cave wall, his entire body trembling. All 4 cubs lived. Against the odds, against his own doubts, they all lived. Gray settled into her nest with the 4 cubs crawling over her, seeking milk and warmth. Owen watched them, these tiny versions of the massive predator who had trusted him with everything. The cubs had the same armored plates, though theirs were soft and flexible. The same yellow eyes, though theirs barely opened. The same 6 legs, though they could barely support their own weight. The largest cub, the firstborn, had a distinctive pale stripe down its back. The second had darker coloring, almost black. The third, the one he had turned, showed a pattern of spots across its shoulder plates. The fourth, the one he had resuscitated, looked the most like Gray herself. They need names, Owen said quietly. He did not expect Gray to respond, but she lifted her head and looked at him. She rumbled softly. Owen thought about it. About this cave and this mountain and this moment that changed everything he thought he knew about trust and family. River, he said, pointing to the spotted one who had come from a difficult position, flowing into the world after redirection. Stone, he said, indicating the dark cub, solid and strong. Dust, he said, nodding to the pale one who had led the way. Sky, he said, touching the smallest one who had stopped breathing, who had needed the air itself forced back into its lungs. Gray listened to each name and rumbled her approval. Or maybe Owen just imagined she understood. It did not matter. The names felt right. Gray rested her head on her paws, exhausted but content. The cubs nursed and squeaked and tumbled over each other. Owen stayed where he was, not wanting to leave, but knowing he should let Gray bond with her babies. He stood slowly, gathering his equipment. Gray's eyes followed him, but she did not rise. When Owen reached the cave entrance, he turned back. I'll come back tomorrow with food and supplies. You did amazing, Gray. I'm proud of you. The sun was rising as Owen emerged from the canyon. He felt like he had been awake for a week. His clothes were covered in birth fluids and his hands ached. But he smiled as he walked back toward his homestead. 4 cubs. 4 new lives. 4 chances for the Shalvek species to survive. And Gray had allowed him to be part of it all. Owen knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same. He had crossed a line between species that most people did not even believe existed. He had become family. The cubs were 3 weeks old when disaster found them. Owen had fallen into a routine. Every morning he hiked to Gray's cave with food and supplies. He checked on the cubs, made sure Gray was recovering properly, and stayed for a few hours before returning home. The cubs were growing fast, already wrestling with each other and exploring beyond the nest. Gray trusted Owen completely now. She allowed him to handle the cubs, to feed them when her milk production lagged, to clean their sleeping area. Sky, the smallest, had become particularly attached to Owen. The cub would climb onto his lap and fall asleep there, its tiny rumbling purr vibrating against his chest. Beth visited once and recorded video of Owen playing with the cubs. The footage showed River pouncing on Owen's hand, while Dust and Stone wrestled nearby. It showed Gray watching contentedly, completely relaxed. It showed something impossible. "This is going to change everything," Beth said quietly. "When people see this, they'll have to reconsider every policy about Shalvex." Owen hoped she was right. But he also knew humans had a talent for rejecting evidence that contradicted their fears. The Colonial Board made their announcement 3 days later. Owen was in town purchasing supplies when he saw the notice on the public display screens. Governor Walsh stood behind a podium, her face set in determined lines. After careful consideration and review of recent Shalvek attacks, the Colonial Board has voted to implement an expanded protection zone. All Shalveks within 50 kilometers of any settlement must be eliminated within 30 days. This decision is final and necessary for the safety of our colonists. The screen showed footage of a Shalvek attacking a farmer's equipment shed, then footage of destroyed fencing, then a casualty report from an incident 6 months ago when a colonist had wandered into Shalvek territory during mating season. Owen's blood turned to ice. 50 kilometers. Gray's cave was 42 kilometers from the nearest settlement. She was inside the elimination zone. He ran back to his transport and drove too fast on the rough roads leading home. Beth was already waiting at his homestead when he arrived. "You saw," she said. "I saw." "What are you going to do?" Owen looked toward the mountains, toward Gray and her cubs, innocent and unaware that humans had decided they should die. "I'm going to stop them." "Owen, you can't. The hunting parties are already organizing. They have authorization from the governor herself. If you interfere, they'll arrest you. Then they'll arrest me." Beth grabbed his arm. "Think about this. You'll lose everything. Your homestead, your work, maybe your freedom. Is one Shalvek worth that?" Owen pulled his arm free. "She's not one Shalvek. She's Gray. She's River and Stone and Dust and Sky. She's a mother protecting her children. And yes, she's worth everything." He packed emergency supplies and headed for the cave. When he arrived, Gray sensed his distress immediately. She rose from the nest, ears forward and alert. The cubs scattered behind her, picking up on their mother's tension. "We have a problem," Owen said. He tried to explain using gestures and tone. Gray watched him intently. She might not understand words, but she understood danger. Owen spent the night in the cave, sleeping near the nest. When dawn came, he made a decision. He pulled out his communicator and opened a live broadcast channel. Any colonist could access public broadcast channels. What he was about to do would reach everyone. "My name is Owen Hayes," he said to the camera. "For the past 3 months I've been working with a Shalvek named Gray. I want to show you something." He turned the camera toward Gray and her cubs. River was nursing while Dust and Stone played near their mother's feet. Sky noticed the camera and approached, tilting its head curiously. "This is what the Colonial Board wants to kill," Owen said. "A mother and her 4 cubs. They've done nothing to threaten humans. Gray has actively protected my homestead from predators. She's intelligent, caring, and peaceful unless threatened." Sky reached up and batted at the camera. Owen laughed despite the tension and gently moved the cub back. "The Colonial Board says all Shalveks in the protection zone must be eliminated. That includes Gray. That includes these babies who are 3 weeks old and have never heard anything." He turned the camera back to himself. "I'm broadcasting from Gray's den. I'm not revealing the exact location because I'm asking the Colonial Board to reconsider this policy. These creatures aren't mindless killers. They're animals trying to survive on a world we've invaded. Every attack on record has been defensive, occurring when humans entered Shalvek territory during vulnerable times." Gray moved closer to Owen. She laid down beside him, placing her massive head on his lap. The cubs crawled over both of them. "I won't let you kill this family," Owen said to the camera. "If the hunting parties come, they'll have to go through me first." He ended the broadcast and sat in the silence that followed. Gray rumbled softly, a sound he had come to recognize as comfort. She knew something was wrong. She was trying to make it better the only way she knew how. "I won't let them hurt you," Owen whispered, scratching behind her ear ridges. "I promise." The response to his broadcast came quickly. His communicator exploded with messages. Some supported him. Many called him a traitor, a fool, an obstacle to human safety. The Colonial Board issued a warrant for his immediate arrest. Beth sent a private message. Hunting party leaves tomorrow at dawn. 20 people all armed. They tracked your broadcast signal. They know where the cave is. Owen read the message 3 times. 20 armed colonists against 1 unarmed man and a protective mother with cubs. He should have been terrified. Part of him was. But a larger part felt calm. He had made his choice. He would stand between Gray's family and the weapons pointed at them. He would not move. He would not yield. If they wanted to kill Gray, they would have to kill him first. Owen settled against the cave wall and watched the cubs play. Gray rested beside him, her breathing slow and steady. Outside, the sun set on what might be their last peaceful night together. Inside the cave, a man and a predator waited for dawn and whatever it would bring. The hunting party arrived 2 hours after sunrise. Owen heard them before he saw them. The sound of transport vehicles echoed through the canyon, followed by voices and the clatter of equipment. He stood at the cave entrance with his arms crossed, watching them assemble. 20 colonists spread across the canyon floor. All of them carried rifles. Some had tranquilizer equipment. Others had capture nets and restraint poles. They came prepared for a dangerous predator. They did not expect to find a man standing in their way. Beth was among them, though she carried no weapon. She approached slowly while the others hung back. Owen, move aside, she said. You've made your statement. The whole colony saw your broadcast, but this has to happen. The board's decision is final. No, Owen said simply. A tall man stepped forward. Owen recognized him as Hunt Leader Ross, a professional who had managed wildlife control on 3 different colony worlds. Ross's face showed no emotion. Mr. Hayes, you're currently under arrest for obstructing colonial safety operations. Step aside voluntarily or we will move you by force. You'll have to use force, Owen said. Behind him, Gray emerged from the cave. The cubs followed, curious about the noise. River and Dust stayed close to their mother, while Stone wandered toward Owen's leg. Sky climbed onto Owen's boot and sat there, looking at the assembled humans with innocent eyes. The hunting party raised their weapons. Hold fire, Ross commanded. He stared at the scene before him, at Owen standing calmly with a Shalvek cub on his foot, at Gray, alert but not aggressive, standing guard over her other cubs, at the impossible tableau of human and predator together without violence. That thing is a killer, someone in the hunting party said. We should shoot now. If she's such a killer, why is that cub playing with his bootlace? Beth asked quietly. The entire hunting party watched as Sky batted at Owen's laces, making little growling sounds. The cub tumbled off the boot and rolled onto its back, exposing its soft belly. Owen crouched and scratched the cub's stomach. Sky made a purring sound. I've worked with dangerous predators for 20 years, Owen said, not taking his eyes off the hunting party. On Earth and on 5 colony worlds. I know what a killer looks like. This is a mother protecting her children. The board analyzed the attack data, Ross said. Every Shalvek incident occurred within 2 kilometers of a den site during breeding season. The victims were all found near caves or rocky shelters. Mr. Hayes is correct. The attacks were defensive. So why are we here? A woman asked. Owen recognized her as Ruth, a farmer from the eastern settlements. Because the board voted to eliminate the threat, Ross said. Defensive or not, Shalveks are dangerous. 3 colonists are dead. 3 colonists who walked into a predator's home during the most vulnerable time of its life, Owen countered. If I walked into your house while your children were sleeping and you shot me, would that make you a killer or a parent? Silence fell across the canyon. The hunting party shifted uncomfortably. Several lowered their weapons. Ross pulled out a small device and projected a holographic display. I'm transmitting a live feed to the Colonial Board right now. Governor Walsh is watching. Owen looked directly at the camera. Governor, you're seeing what I see every day. Gray has never threatened me. She's defended me from actual predators. She trusted me to help birth her cubs. One of these babies stopped breathing and I brought it back to life. He picked up Sky and held the cub toward the camera. Sky squeaked and wiggled in his hands. This is what you voted to kill. Does this look like a threat to you? Ruth stepped forward from the hunting party. She lowered her rifle completely. If that creature wanted to kill him, he'd be dead. We all know it. Look at the size of that thing compared to him. Gray rumbled softly. She had not moved from her protective stance, but she had not attacked either. She watched the humans with intelligence in her eyes, assessing the threat level. She's waiting to see what we do, Owen said. If we attack, she'll defend her cubs. She'll probably die doing it, but she'll fight. That's not aggression. That's love. Ross studied the scene for a long moment. Then he looked at his holographic display. Governor Walsh is watching. Governor, what are your orders? The projected voice came through tinny but clear. Stand down. The hunting party exchanged surprised looks. Ross frowned at the display. Governor, I said stand down, hunt leader. I'm watching a man risk his life to protect another species' children. I'm watching that species trust him completely. I'm watching everything we thought we knew about Shalvek's proven wrong. Governor Walsh paused. Owen could hear other voices in the background, board members arguing. The policy is hereby reversed. Walsh continued. Effective immediately. Shalvek elimination is suspended pending further behavioral study. Mr. Hayes, you're appointed as official liaison between human settlements and Shalvek populations. The board will provide funding and resources. Owen nearly dropped Sky in shock. The cub squeaked indignantly and he caught it against his chest. Furthermore, Walsh said, we're establishing coexistence zones around known den sites. Any human entering these zones during breeding season does so at their own risk. We will not punish animals for defending their homes. Ross lowered his weapon and nodded slowly. Understood, Governor. Hunting party is standing down. One by one, the other colonists lowered their weapons. Ruth walked forward until she stood 10 feet from Gray. The massive Shalvek watched her but did not move. Can I? Ruth asked Owen. Move slowly. Let her decide. Ruth took another step, then another. Gray's ears swiveled forward, tracking her approach. When Ruth was 5 feet away, Gray made a soft chuffing sound. Not aggressive. More like acknowledgement. Ruth stopped there, not pushing further. I was one of the votes to eliminate them, she said quietly. I was scared. I didn't understand. Now you do, Owen said. The hunting party left an hour later, but several members stayed behind to take readings and recordings. They wanted to understand these creatures better. They wanted to learn what Owen had learned. That night, Owen sat in Gray's cave with the cubs piled around him. River slept across his legs. Stone and Dust wrestled nearby. Sky curled against his side, purring softly. Gray rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture she had started doing after the standoff. Trust made physical. Beth appeared at the cave entrance. The board wants you in the capital next week. They're setting up the coexistence program. You'll be training other colonists on how to interact with Shalvek safely. Good, Owen said. It's about time. What they're calling you is spreading through the colony network, Beth continued. That phrase from the xenobiology translation. Owen raised an eyebrow. What phrase? When they analyzed Gray's vocalizations and scent markings, they found a pattern. She has a specific designation she uses for you. The computers translated it roughly as Death Who Guards Life. Owen looked down at Sky, peaceful and small against his side. That's a bit dramatic. The cub simplified it. Their version translates closer to Uncle Death. Other Shalveks are picking it up. You're becoming a concept in their language. The human who walks with death but protects life. Owen scratched behind Gray's ear ridges. She rumbled contentedly. I like Uncle Death, he said. It has a nice ring to it. Beth laughed and left them to their peace. Outside, the stars of Taros 9 filled the sky. Inside the cave, a family rested together. Human and Shalvek. Different species. Same bond. Owen closed his eyes and listened to the cub's breathing. He thought about the journey that brought him here. About loss and redemption. About fear and trust. About building bridges where others saw only divides. Sky shifted in sleep and placed one tiny paw on Owen's hand. I've got you, Owen whispered. Uncle Death's got all of you. And in that moment, on a harsh world light years from Earth, a man who had lost everything found something better. He found family that transcended species. He found purpose that transcended fear. He found proof that understanding could triumph over instinct, that patience could build trust even between predator and prey, and that sometimes the most human thing you could do was recognize the humanity in creatures that were not human at all. Gray rumbled softly, a sound that meant contentment and safety and home. Owen smiled in the darkness and let sleep take him, surrounded by the family he chose and the trust they had built together, one careful moment at a time.